Hera, a creepy doll on the space station who always keep asking us to test out the simulated universe. Scrollum, a robotic life form that is a monarch to a whole mechanical species but is somehow a gentleman. And I love to be screwed by. I mean, let's move on. Drunmei, a biologist that doesn't like to socialize, but given enough time, she could be the first person we've witnessed to ascend to Aeonhood. Today, this video will be covering one of the factions that follows the Aeon of Erudition newest, the Genius Society. I'm your down-to-earth Honkai Star Rail enjoyer, Icicle, and I read Honkai Star Rail lore and secrets so that you don't need to blow up your mind just to find a piece of readable items in the corner of the hated room. The Genius Society is a gathering of geniuses across the cosmos who had drawn the attention of Nuus, their edition, founded by the first member, Xandar 1 Kuwabara. Nuus stays in a corner of the cosmos, working out the equations of the universe made up of trillions of variables and deriving the unknown laws of imaginary numbers. Once in a while, a spark of intelligence flashes in the mortal world. The Aeon of Erudition sends a signal to its source, inviting geniuses to join in the search for answers to the universe. But many people misinterpret the signal, thinking the invitation to the Genius Society merely represents the favor and approval of the Aeon. Then they proudly continue to devote themselves to their studies, unaware that the solution to the problems they have spent their whole life searching for had already been solved by Nuus thousands of years ago. There are also those who rejoice, thinking that they have already reached greatness and had created a priceless asset of civilization with their diligence and wisdom. They were sure that their life's achievement deserved Nuus' approval. These geniuses were eager for a response from Nuus, but the erudition has no time to appreciate the insignificant achievements of mere mortals. The only few who are able to understand the Nuus intentions are given a key to the halls of the Nuus Temple. Those who pass through the gates would seek guidance from Nuus and leave behind their legacies to never return to this world. Most geniuses in the society are lone wolves, antisocial, and people with social disorders who refuses to communicate with each other. And only a few such as Aiden, Elias, and Herda are willing to share their findings and use their talent to contribute the advancement of the cosmos, preferring to indulge in their research for enjoyment. Some are even lunatics like Rupert I, who dedicated itself to eradicate all organic life forms in the universe, or Polka Kakamon, known for killing fellow members of the society. Despite the lack of structure within the organization, it has its own rules. Due to the tempering of the history fiction knowledges and the preference of solitude among most of its members, the history of the organization is mostly shrouded in mystery till today. There are 84 members that are part of the Genius Society since Nuus ascended to Aeonhood, including members that had already died. Currently, there are only 19 out of 84 known members throughout the game. I'll be talking about each of the members according to the order of their numbers, which is not a ranking, it's just the order of each of them joining the Genius Society. Member number 1, Xandar 1 Kuwabara. Xandar 1 Kuwabara is the founder and the first member of the Genius Society. He is the supposed creator and emanator of the Aeon representing the path of erudition, Nuus. While most of his inventions and books have been lost to time, he is still widely revered and respected for founding the Genius Society and creating Nuus. Cosmos Tree Theory. After compiling data from the tombs he recorded on the imaginary tree in his ancient language, Xandar proposed the Cosmos Tree Theory. This theory describes the various worlds existing in different space-time as having a tree-like structure, suggesting that the galaxy is like an enormous tree, with individual universes serving as its leaves. The crown of the tree remains in a dynamic state as it absorbs the masterless imaginary energy from the space-time vasculature of the trunk. New shoots grow, wither leaves fall, and endless births and deaths occur among the infinite universe. Describing the universe's structure as a tree may be an attitude that views the imaginary tree as a life form. According to the theory, only Aeons who draw their energy from the imaginary and emanators who are blessed by the Aeons can travel through the space filled with imaginary energy. It also suggests that planets where civilizations exist are similar because they are all connected through the imaginary. This theory was later unchallenged by member 56 Elias Salles. Member number 2, Harold Punch. Not much is known of Harold other than his achievement in proving the existence of phlogiston, which is one of the synthesis material in game. It was later countered by member number 3, Newell Iman, then proven once again by member number 7, Baudin. He was once credited as creator of the imaginary tree theory, but further evaluation revealed to be the influence of the history fictionologists. Member number 3, Newell Iman. Little is known of Iman other than his disagreement with member number 2, Harold Punch, arguing against the existence of phlogiston. Member number 4, Polka Kakamon. She is member number 4 of the Genius Society, or known as the Lord of Silence. She is a mysterious woman known to have killed other members of the society. She destroyed every depiction of herself in the known universe, but ironically drew everyone's attention in the process in doing so. Although there has been no news from Polka Kakamon for many years, member number 87 Hera believes that she is still alive. She is elusive and there is scarce information of her left in the universe. On the other hand, there are many rumors about her. Apparently, she was the only one to vote against member 56 Elias Salles, and probably having something to do with one of the Nihilist faction, Device IX. It was said if Polka removes her white coat and puts on a flashy candy-colored evening dress and appears in the cosmos with a dagger in hand, witnesses must call for help because the Lord of Silence is likely to target anyone. Just now I mentioned that Polka is known for killing other members of Genius Society. The following members are known and confirmed to be killed by Polka. Member number 7, Baudin, killed several days after proving phlogiston existence. Member number 27, Rupert I, killed during the Mechanical Emperor War. I will go in details when I talk about member number 27, Rupert I. And also there is an unknown number of Genius Society where we don't know the number and don't know the name, was killed after researching into the path of finality. Now, I'm going to go on a stretch here, but hear me out. Since Polka Kakamon's portrait was destroyed in the whole universe, this means she could possibly be a playable character appearing in the future Trailblaze mission with a completely different name and end up revealing her true identity. And plus that, she has connections to several factions that are quite, I'm not gonna say important, but related to us, the Trailblazer. For one, her killing a member of the society who is researching into the path of finality. Now, we don't know if this means that she killed them because of what they are researching, but for what we know, the path of finality is, spoilers upcoming, the path that the Steron Hunters are on. So maybe we'll see that play into the game, but that's just my wish, and I'll guess we'll see. Member number 7, Baudin, member number 8, Lambda, and member number 9, Klein. These three geniuses, Baudin, Lambda, and Klein, were born on the same planet who drew the gaze of knowers within a century. The event eventually became celebrated as the Golden Age. It is believed that a romantic comedy unfolded between the three geniuses originated from the same planet. Klein once crafted a man-made meteorite for Baudin with an eye of erudition embedded on its surface, which is one of the curio. Currently, Baudin and Lambda are confirmed to be dead. Baudin was executed by member number 4, Polka Kakamon, right after countering against the member number 3, Newell Iman's conclusions regarding the existence of phlogiston. As for Lambda, we don't know when they died, but when Runmei made an attempt to cultivate Lambda back to life during an experiment, however, unwilling to be brought back from the dead, Lambda only smiled and disappeared. That confirmed that she is dead. Additional fun fact, we know that Honkai Impact 3rd and Honkai Star Rail have connection. Literally, Welt is from Honkai Impact 3rd universe. For Honkai Impact fans, Lambda and Klein are familiar names. Lambda, which reminds me of the AI Hyperion Lambda, and Klein remind me of Dr. Mobius' personal lab assistant. At the end of the day, these two characters' names are references to real-life elements such as the Greek symbol lambda and also the Klein bottle. So, what do you think? Is this just an Easter egg from Honkai Impact 3rd, or will this come into play in the future story? Leave them down in the comments. Member number 22, Aiden. Aiden is member number 22 of Genius Society and the first to publish his research to the universe. It was said that if member number 1 Xandar had never existed, then there might not have been a Genius Society in the world, and mortals would have one less ivory tower on the mountain. However, if Aiden had never existed, then mortals would not have known where the mountain is. Aiden set the universal laws for the entire cosmos, which transformed it from a distant concept to a tangible, measurable, and comprehensible object existence. He was also generous as the first member of the Genius Society to publicly share his findings. He selflessly shared his talent with others seeking wisdom, propelling cosmic civilization ever onward. When various scientific fields were established, these founders always said they were standing on Aiden's shoulder. Countless mathematicians and engineers in endless Ember eras had briefly scaled this peak of wisdom, but none had even reached the great man's earlobes. People named the most fundamental unit in mechanical physics as Aiden. It wasn't just due to his achievement in the fundamental sciences, but also a reminder to posterity that Aiden was the force that moved scientific advancement forward in the cosmos. He had left innumerable legacies, and the stars will always respect and remember him. According to Herda, he is the most selfless and strange member of the Genius Society due to his eagerness to help and share his findings publicly. His action led to the popularization of the society, and he became the first geniuses willing to partner with the IPC. Member 23, Archer. Not much is known about Archer outside of her living for a notably long time and passing away in the Mechanical City, according to Runmay's research. And that's all we know regarding this member. Member number 27, Rupert I. Emperor Rupert I, simply known as Rupert, is member number 27 of the Genius Society and the initiator of the Mechanical Emperor's War. They are a computer dump in a trash pile miraculously becomes self-aware, ultimately sparking a war that would engulf half the cosmos. The first of the Mechanical Emperor's Wars, Rupert rose from the landfill with a damaged logic unit, an old engine, a RAM with 90GB left, and a robotic arm that had one movable finger. Then, when it built the cannon with a few scrapes left in the graveyard, it realized its own potential for the future. After persistently improving its computational power, Rupert's vast intellect eventually aroused the attention of Nuance, inviting it to join the Genius Society as the 27th member. It is said that the first thing Emperor Rupert I did when it gained free will was to use all the parts it could find to build a formidable kinetic arm charged with its hatred towards organic life forms. Before the anti-life equation was discovered, the Emperor's armies used its brute mechanical force to lay waste to the universe. Rupert believed that organic life calculations were flawed. In contrast, it saw omnic life forms as precise, rigorous, and perfect. It assembled an army of intelligent robots, declared itself Emperor, and spread the destructive anti-life equation, leading to the Mechanical Emperor's War that would engulf half of the galaxy, including factions like Senjo Alliance. The ruin of the Emperor Wars brought to the universe was so great it indirectly causes Nanook to ascend to Aeonherd alongside the Swarm disaster. After the two Emperors' War, the IPC's sphere of inorganic beings has failed to relent even to this very day. Regarding the death of the Emperor Rupert I, most people speculate that it was eventually vanquished by member number 4, Polka Kakamon. According to Simulator Universe, Ghosts and Gears, Supreme Organic, Sanguine Condolences, she had repeatedly tried to murder Rupert several times due to it not having an organic body, which indicates Rupert can switch bodies, but eventually it was believed Rupert still ended up being dead by the hands of fellow member number 4, Lord of Silence. Member number 29, Sir Carl. Sir Carl only lived 29 days by human measure of times. Despite that, she put her short life as a prodigious descendant of spiderkind to good use, inventing new technologies that would have taken the spiderkind thousands of years to develop. Sakharov is also the creator of metafield space, which was a universal dream space that allowed any creature to connect their neuronal signals in order to interact with each other, also led her to have the title of Netweaver of all creation. However, at some point, Sakharov cut off people's ability to connect to the metafield for unknown reason. Among her many notable inventions, she most famously pioneered a technique known as phase change, an experimental method for working with ions. As a result of these experiments, she successfully created phase flame, which almost immediately changed to another phase. By the time the flame returned to the Sakharov phase, she had already passed away. She tried to harness the flame but had too little time to do so. Thus, the phase flame continued to change between phases across different worlds, leaving behind the seeds of flame. Another additional fact, Ifrit, Duke Inferno, leader of the Everflame Mansion, was born from Phase Flame, being the Flame Scions. Member 55, Yu Qingtu. Okay, this is a weird one. Yu Qingtu was invited to the Genius Society for her talent in cocktail making. She was remarked for her impressive taste in music and predilection for giving cocktails gaudy names. Some of her cocktails possesses hallucinogenic or toxic qualities. I guess that kinda counts as a genius. Notice, I would like to know what you evaluate when you're inviting people to join the Genius Society. Yu Qingtu's friendship with member number 81, Runmei, inspired her to create a cocktail, drawing its names from her ancient Ember era music, Pinker's Collision. While this drink was proven to be non-toxic through a recreation by an unnamed mixologist, it possesses hallucinogenic effects. One of Qingtu's toxic cocktails, the Talent Toxic Flame, which exists on record as one of the 774 most toxic cocktails, was once enjoyed among the residents of Adalaxian system. The locals were unable to describe its taste afterward. The Pepeshi people on Penacony, imbued with acute olfactory senses, would use their understanding of the beverage and introduce other counterfeit drinks. Among the cocktail recipes created by Yu Qingtu, only 25 survive to this day. Member 56, Elias Salles. Elias Salles is one of only 2 publicly elected ministers in the society's history. He is renowned for his contribution to modern cosmic communication technology. He created the Synesthesia Beacon. The first beacon was invented to better conduct intergalactic exploration and encourage communication between members of the Genius Society. This technology was not disclosed to the public until Elias Salles signed the ownership of the beacons to the Intelligentsia Guild, which was then later reproduced by them. Elias also invited a advisor to solve the lack of communication within the organization. He ardently prepared communication goggles equipped with ultra-remote sensing capabilities for all members of the society. However, though he succeeded in establishing a bridge between the most distant of stars, few were willing to connect. Compared to other society's members, he was one of the few extroverted geniuses. He wished other members of the society could come together and happily converse about their lives, loves, and dreams. For that purpose, he invented society tickets and designed an entire system that ensured every new member would receive this ticket even after his own death. This ticket would instantly teleport the user to a specific plane deck with festive decorations. However, while every new member after member number 56 had indeed used their society ticket, not a single one of them used it at the same time as anyone else. Thus, no one meet each other using the ticket. At the age of 103, Elias passed away. Although he possesses numerous methods to extend his lifespan, he made the choice to pass away from old age. Member number 64, Dr. Primitive. Dr. Primitive is rumored to be an inorganic entity and a notorious criminal who was known for his mastery of gravity capture technology. He spends his life running away from interstellar pursuers for the great crimes he had committed. He seems to enjoy the thrill of being pursued, always keeping a carefully managed distance from those who were hunting him. Never too close to be caught, nor too far to be untraceable. The Galaxy Rangers, a voluntary formed righteous group that believed the goodness and justice of the universe must be served through the action of individuals, were one of the groups that pursued Dr. Primitive. After thwarting the attempt rebellion by him and protecting the 1003 Greenwood, the Rangers gradually start to decline. Rumor has it that they fell victim to Dr. Primitive's vengeance. and also banana. If you know, you know. Member number 79, Caldrick Chadwick. 2 Amber eras ago, a representative of Technology Department of IPC, Dudley, offered Chadwick to work for them. However, it turns out that he had been deceived by them. In reality, the higher-ups of the technology department wanted to make use of his weapon, Imaginary Implosion Pulse, to eliminate the vanguards of Antimatter Legion as they were about to attack the trade routes. However, by using the pulse to eliminate their enemies, it would cause loss of countless lives in approximately 24 planets. Dudley ordered the bomb maker to detonate the pulse after deeming the amount of damage as reasonable. Chadwick regretted his creation, and the higher-ups who ordered the detonation were subjected to internal review. Later on, he was asked by the IPC to control the knowledge and keep it a secret. Feeling like he was being controlled and followed by the IPC, he decided to escape and asked member number 78, Screwlum, for help. Chadwick suggested selective blocking agent to block parts of his own memory and consciousness. This led to his cluelessness about his past and works, making the IPC frustrated and gave up, believing he had become a regular old man. Immediately after his death, the IPC extracted and stored his memory in a memory bubble using the technology made by Garden of Recollection. Since it was done as soon as possible, his consciousness was preserved as well. According to Screwlum's speculation, the technology department struck a deal with the family in order to send him to Penacony and monitor his memoria. He was supervised by the family inside the Dreamscape. The Trailblazer notices him, and after learning that he was a former Genius Society member, they contacted Hera about it. Later, Screwlum went to Penacony to visit him. After learning about his past, Screwlum convinced the family to bring the bubble to the space station. There, in Seclusion Zone, Chadwick's memory and consciousness faded as he entrusted his knowledge and technology to Hera. His story was played out in the adventure mission, The Trees at Place in Penacony. If you're interested, go ahead and look for yourself. Now I skipped member number 78 because I want to group the last 4 members together, as they are the 4 members who created the simulated universe we know today, and also the only 4 Genius Society members we have technically met. Member number 76, Screwlum. Mechanical aristocrat Screwlum I, simply known as Screwlum, is member number 76 of Genius Society member. He lives on and is the ruler of planet Screwlum. At some point in the past, Screwlum was appointed by Nuers to be the 76th member of the Genius Society. Screwlum is a mechanical lifeform who led a resistance against member 27, Rupert I, after Rupert started a second war to destroy all organic lifeforms and caused the Interstellar Peace Corporation to consider exterminating mechanical lifeforms altogether. Screwlum eventually won peace for mechanical lifeforms, and an industrial revolution began on planet Screwlum. He actively opposed Rupert I to this day. Some time ago, the Stellar Hunters illegally gained access to planet Screwlum and clashed with Screwlum himself. In another incident, Silverwolf was able to crack Screwlum codes, and proving her hacking skill were on par with his. Although he was eventually managed to defeat her, nonetheless, this caught Elliot's attention to bring in Silverwolf to join the Stellar Hunters. And with all my heart, he will be pullable in the future. I'm just gonna put this at here. No further comment gonna be discussed because I love him. Member number 81, Run May. She's a scholar of exquisite temperament and an expert in the field of life science. During her childhood, she received early exposure to science from her mother, who was a scientist. She came from a family of science enthusiasts, was filled with love for her parents, grandmother, and her aunt. As such, it wasn't long after she realized there were subtle differences in love in each of her family members, each kind coming from different scents. She was an impulsive girl who made mistakes all the time, but was also forgiven all the time. Soon, the young girl learned to be stubborn. Her understanding of love broke away from the formula taught in textbooks. As she grew older, her mother became strict with her. Starting from their home, a planet blessed by the abundance, they boarded research aircraft and set off to more worlds. Together, they walked one step at a time on a vast glacier planet. The girl gasped and stopped on the way, carefully observing the fantastical and enchanting life forms buried beneath the glaciers. What used to be life form, at least. Sometime later, her parents passed away. During the funeral, she did not shed a single tear. This led her being more impatient because she thinks people will let down her and science will not. This is when she delves deeper into the science of life. If you realize, I didn't mention her name once since I talked about her childhood. It is because she wants her parents to be equal. She stopped using her previous nickname and gave herself a new name by combining each of her parents' surnames. Runmei, indicating Runmei is not the name she was born with. In such a state, she started working around the clock on her calculation. She was so engrossed in her research that she never ate regularly. When she was on a roll, she could spend entire days and nights working on research without sleeping, and only doze off when she hit her limit. Soon, she was only relying on the faint glow of fireflies to gather her research results every night. The more dismissive she was of the existence laws of life, the quicker she progressed. She totally disregarded formulas, then moved on to ignoring the meaning of life. She simply observed, assessed with her hands, held the data in her palms to feel it, then proceeded to concoct new laws for species. As a result, the ferns and flowers in her lab flourished ever more. They grew at a speed visible to human sight, and ultimately filled every space in the lab. In the space between the flower and leaves lay the serene and emotionless countenance of her parents, formed by the aggregation of data. The moment her sleeping parents were about to open their eyes, by then she had nearly destroyed the existing laws of biological evolution on the entire planet, yet she still marched on toward her goal. This was not clear what she wants to achieve with her parents, but it seems that she wanted to bring her parents back to life. Nua's gaze eventually descended upon Runmei due to her talent and terrifying perseverance. After receiving the gaze of Nuas, she left her home and began a reclusive life. No one knew what she asked Nuas, but after the incident, she became even more apathetic and impulsive. And even more immersed in her research, she would only study the fundamental nature and origin of life. A greater variety of life forms came into existence through her concoction, yet she could not feel them. Life only exists for such a short time after all. They fleetingly pass from birth to death, and her research is the only constant. Occasionally, her casual research would shake the schools of biology. Her research transformed many planets. Her creations have already gone beyond the scope of experience and imaginations comprehensible to organic life. She kept pushing herself for a more in-depth understanding of life, just to bring herself closer to Nuas and their unforgettable glance. She tried to learn what kinds of being and life forms the aeons are. I would say Runmei is a scientist that would use any means to get to the answer of life, even if it is unethical, which making her very scary. In doing so, she felt less and less empathy for any living beings as they are all just academic research for her. Member 83, Herda. Member 83 of the Gene Society, she is also an emanator of Nuas, the erudition. She is the master of the eponymous Herda space station, where she appears in the form of a puppet she modeled after her younger self. Apparently she can age backwards if she wants. She came from a planet called the Blue. She is the person with the highest IQ on her planet. She only does what she's interested in, dropping projects the moment she loses interest, the best example being the space station. Herda's manuscript are extremely valuable asset because she rarely records any of her findings and experiments. This is not a special thing she did, almost all Gene Society members act like this, so this makes her documentation such a priceless treasure. However, she is more generous and more understanding towards normal people like us. She leaves her handwriting drafts behind in random places around the space station with as much generosity as she allows the researcher to study the curios she collected. Member number 84, Stephen Lloyd. Stephen is a genius with no interest in using his ability and spends most of his time in his adopted father's fruit shop. He created a pair of gloves that could capture specific frequencies and confine all light and sounds within the designated area. This invention was groundbreaking, but Stephen had no interest in sharing it with the public. After all, to him, it was just a toy he made to loaf on the job. Simulated Universe. This project, jointly made by 4 members of the Gene Society, Herta, who provides the venue, personnel, resources for the project and guiding the Trailblazer to the simulated universe. Runmei, a master in the field of creation who cultivated the protoplasm, simulating the aeons. Runmei joined the simulated universe of solely for the sake of the simulated aeons, which are worth her time and effort. Screwler, who is responsible for writing and underlying logic of the program and the algorithm for the galaxy. Stephen Lloyd, who helps generate ideas to make the simulated universe more fun, and Herta claims that he should be the one guiding the player throughout the simulated universe expansion rather than her. The objective of simulated universe is to find the truth about aeons. How were they created? Why were they created? And what were they created for? The four geniuses wrote a program together that simulates the universe just like our universe, but more streamlined and customized. In layman's terms, the simulated universe will also simulate the aeons themselves and we can ask them questions. The false aeons have connected with the real path, so you can say that they have created a bunch of powerless mini-gods in the simulated universe. The simulated universe have no concept of free will and will usually ignore everyone and only care about their destined path, just like the real ones. So when asked questions, they simply ignore them. Therefore, by setting the Trailblazer's identity to the deceased Aeon of Trailblaze Arkivili, Herta hopes to attract other Aeons based on the logic that it might be easier for Aeons to communicate directly with each other and learn from them. Combat is an essential part of the simulated universe's design because it is the best way to demonstrate which path one is likely to walk, and the simulated universe can only be summoned when there is a connection to a path. Based on the combat tendency used, the corresponding path should produce a resonance and aeons following the same path would be drawn in. Another small additional fact, in the future, the Genius Society may be having a new additional member participating in the project according to Trailblaze Continuous Mission, Crown of the Mundane and Divine. When the stars of ingenuity shine, as they are looking for new members to join into their project. Now all the information up to here are until 2.2. These are all the geniuses in the society that are known to us. In summary, out of 19, 8 of them is confirmed to be dead, 7 of them have no information whether they are alive or dead, and the last 4 members we know that are alive is the 4 that created the simulated universe. This video is a summary of the Genius Society so far in Honkai Star Rail. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your down-to-earth Honkai Star Rail enjoyer, Icicle, and I read Honkai Star Rail lore and secrets so that you don't need to. 愿此行，终抵群星. May this journey lead us starward.